When a 14-year-old goes missing right before Christmas break, a community is thrown into chaos looking for this boy. Questions about his parents' behavior create a tense and difficult situation while trying to figure out what happened to their son. This is the fatal breakdown of the Harley Dilly story. Friday, December 20th, 2019, was the last day of school before the holiday break. Harley Dilly would have been excited about having no schoolwork and getting to play his video games for the next few weeks. When he didn't show up at home at the usual time, his mother wasn't that surprised. They had been having a lot of arguments lately, including the most recent one about a broken cell phone that they wouldn't be replacing anytime soon. Harley had some behavioral issues and had run away from home a few times. Generally, this meant that he spent the night at a friend's house and came home the next morning after calming down so he could shower, eat, and play his games. Harley was a smart kid, but did suffer from oppositional defiance disorder, ADHD, and was also diagnosed with high-functioning autism. So when he didn't show up Saturday morning after cooling off, the Dillys started to worry about where he might be. Despite their worries, they didn't call the police to report their son missing until nearly midnight on Saturday. This certainly seemed suspicious to police taking the report. They had not seen their son in over 40 hours, and he wasn't a self-sufficient kid who could survive on his own for more than a few hours. They did explain the family dynamic and the suspicion that he may have run away because he was mad about the cell phone. It was only a few days before Christmas, so the police force didn't have full staff available for the small town of Port Clinton, Ohio. They canvassed the neighborhood and checked with family and friends. They talked to everyone who saw him on Thursday or Friday to determine when he was last seen. All of the usual protocols for locating a young runaway were followed, but there was not a single lead. No one had seen or spoken to Harley since he left the house Friday morning. After weeks of investigation led by the police chief Robert Hickman, including other agencies such as the BCI, U.S. Marshals Service, State Highway Patrol, FBI, and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, they had just a single clue. A quick view of Harley was seen on a neighbor's surveillance camera. He was just crossing the street in his maroon puffer jacket and gray sweatpants. It looked like any other kid leaving in the morning heading to school. As the days and weeks passed, theories were proposed and discarded about where Harley might be. Did he really run away this time? Was he kidnapped? Did his parents do something to him? Every possible theory was pursued, but there was never any hard evidence to support them. After more than 3 weeks, they were following up with some social media contacts, but still had nothing to go on. They decided to start from the beginning and reinvestigate the disappearance. Chief Hickman and a CBI investigator, Lori Braunschweiger, went back to Harley's home and started in the direction he was seen on video. Lori was brand new to the case, so she wanted to check things that may have already been looked at, including an empty house right across the street from Harley's house. The police had searched the lot and looked in the windows of the home. The windows and doors were locked and nothing looked disturbed. But since they were starting from square one, they decided to pick up a key from the owner and take a look around. The home was undergoing some renovations and had been empty for a very long time. The dust from construction looked undisturbed. No footprints or signs of someone staying there. While walking through the rooms, they did see something quite surprising. There was a maroon puffer jacket like the one Harley was seen wearing on surveillance footage. Maybe he hid out here for a while? Or maybe was held captive here by someone. Once they confirmed that it was his jacket, a full investigative team examined the property to see if there were any additional clues to his whereabouts. As they collected clues, they also found his shirt and his glasses. How did he get into this house? And where is he now? When Harley left his house on the morning of December 20th, he was still annoyed with his mom for not letting him stay home for the day like he'd asked. He had decided to skip school anyway and find a place to wait until she left for work. Across the street from his house was an empty home that he was going to check out for a while. All the doors were locked, so he wouldn't be able to just walk in, but it did have an antenna tower that would put him up on the roof. So he climbed up and hopped onto the roof. With his little flashlight, he looked down the chimney. It was dark, but it looked open all the way to the bottom. We don't know exactly what Harley was thinking at that moment, but he clearly thought he could slide down the chimney and enter the house through the fireplace. Even though he was 14 years old, he was small for his age. At just 4 feet 9 inches tall with a thin 100-pound frame, sliding down the chimney might not have seemed quite so daunting to the teen. The opening was only 13 inches by 9 inches, slightly bigger than a sheet of paper. Even the boldest of spirits would have a moment of pause before deciding to get in. Harley went in feet first with his hands raised over his head. He would have had to slide down a distance of 15 feet to reach the bottom of the shaft. The inside of the brick rectangle had nothing to grip onto, so he would have been sliding with little option to slow himself down. His jacket and shirt were pulled up as he slid and peeled off a bit as he moved down the chimney. When he reached the bottom, he was confronted with an unbelievable fact. There was no fireplace. This brick chimney was a vent for wood-burning stoves, not an open fireplace. The only way out was 15 feet back up the brick chimney. His clothes were likely up over his head and really causing him stress. He was able to shimmy out of his jacket, hoodie, and shirt. Certainly there would have been a moment of sheer panic, being trapped in this narrow tunnel with arms overhead. He had to quickly figure out a way to free himself of the bulky jacket. Even though space was limited, he found a way to remove them completely. He discovered 2 vent holes at the 6-foot level, just within reach above his head. He was able to push his clothes out this vent hole to give himself clearance to breathe. This probably happened within just a few minutes of reaching the bottom of the shaft. He may have tried to pull himself up, but there was just nothing to use to leverage himself. Harley also used his feet and legs to remove his shoes, socks, and sweatpants. He likely tried to pull himself up with the vent hole openings, but without leverage and unable to fully bend his arms or knees, it would be nearly impossible to move up. Pure exhaustion would be quick to take over. Without being able to fully expand his lungs, his oxygen saturation would have been slowly decreasing. It is unknown how long Harley was alive in this narrow brick tunnel. He was not found for 23 days. This made it difficult to determine the time and cause of death, but the coroner stated that he likely died the same day he became stuck. Not knowing whether he lived for 10 minutes or 10 hours is a painful reality for the family and community. When the investigative team came to search the house in detail, they located clothing items on the floor, his jacket, a zip-up hoodie, and a jersey all piled on the floor near a wall. In another room, they found his glasses on the floor, near the vent hole. Circular vent covers were found on the floor as well. One of the investigators reached his hand into the vent hole to see if he could feel anything inside. To his complete horror, he touched the hair of Harley Dilly's head. It was a traumatic realization. Harley was stuck in the wall. They brought in a full excavation team to open the walls around this area. They had finally discovered what happened to Harley Dilly. He was found with his pants, shoes, and flashlight on the floor of the chimney chamber. He was slightly slumped with his arms overhead. It was clear that he had entered through the roof and couldn't get back out. His official cause of death was compressive asphyxiation. This meant that he physically was unable to expand his chest completely to fill it with air. When just a small fraction of new air is introduced to the lungs, the levels of oxygen drop as it is used up in respiration. Harley made a single decision that could not be reversed. He was all alone and probably quickly understood the kind of mistake he'd made was not fixable. He was just a young boy caught in an incredibly sad accident. It was a devastating tragedy for the family and the Port Clinton community as a whole.